Okay, I think we're live. Hi everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar today. My name is Stefano, and I'm here with Josh today. Let me quickly present our slides. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about bad sales hires. Last time we were talking about the kind of the mistakes that you can do while you're recruiting for sales reps. But at the same time, today we're going to see what are kind of the costs, like the hidden costs that you need to sustain when you get someone that is not the perfect hire in sales. Just briefly, we're going to introduce the two of us. My name is Stefano. I've been working in the software industry for more than 12 years now. I previously started a company that is called Cloud Academy, and there I was managing a team that at some point has been, from 40 to 50 salespeople. I've been managing all sorts of sales reps at different seniorities. So from account executive, BDRs, customer success people, partner managers, and of course, also VPs and CROs. And so a lot of my experience actually comes from that experience, but also from my experience at Anthropos. And, I personally very like sales. And so I think, it's one of those areas where you constantly need to improve your hiring. You constantly need to improve the way you basically select people. And that's really a lot of, what we're going to be talking about today. Josh, over to you.
Thanks, Stefano. Hey guys, thanks for joining. I see some names in the attendees list. So thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Josh Sipher. I'm the founding account executive here at Anthropos. A little bit about me. I've been working in software sales for about 8 years
Sorry.
now. It's okay. And I've been both on the manager side as well as an individual contributor. So I have hired SDRs, BDRs, AEs, the whole gamut. So I'm excited to, continue this conversation here with Stefano, and hopefully you guys will learn something new today.
Cool. Thank you, Josh. Okay, so before I talk about why hiring mistakes are expensive, of course, we're doing this webinar because a lot of what we do at Anthropos is really partnering with companies that are hiring people, and we provide a solution that allows them to assess their people before they hire them. And they put all of them inside AI simulations, inside these real life scenarios where you can actually see how these people do things before you make a final hiring decision. So of course, a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today are going to be completely unrelated to Anthropos and our solution. And it's going to be specifically related to sales and hiring sales reps. But at the end of this demo, we're actually going to show you how you can actually use our solution to screen for specific sales skills, for specific sales reps that you want to hire in your organization. With that being said, there is something that I always like to think about, specifically for us, but I always remind that to other friends that are building a sales team, is that hiring mistakes in sales are very expensive, right? And why is that? Because they usually take a lot longer to be recognized and to be fixed. That's probably the best way to summarize that. Meaning like, whenever you have someone that is joining your organization as a new salesperson, as a new customer success person, even, so not specifically to sales, it's gonna take you a bit of time, usually 2, 3 months, to make sure that that person knows how to talk about the organization, knows how to present your product, knows how to handle objections. And of course, as the months pass, you're gonna start seeing patterns like, this person doesn't know how to do these things, or maybe I have to repeat these many things and they're still not following me. So all these things basically are expensive usually because they usually are gonna consume 6 months, sometimes even 9 months before you think like, okay, this person is not really working out in this organization and we need to replace them, right? So that's why, hiring mistakes are really among the most expensive one when it comes down to sales. And, the last but not least, I think that, one of the other reasons why they're usually very expensive, at least, not initially, but in an indirect way, you're going to burn a lot of leads. So customers that otherwise might have bought your solution, might have bought your services, they're not going to do that, and it's going to take you a while to recognize that. And of course, those are additional revenues that you could have collected, you could have closed, and you're not going to be doing that, right? I put a point as last point in this slide, which is customers will not tell you a lot. This is pretty important for me because whenever you have a bad sales hire in your team, you're not going to see a lot of customers coming back to you as a VP or as a director or even as a founder telling you like, hey, I talked to Josh and actually I was not impressed. They will simply not show up. They will simply not reply. They will simply not follow up with things. And so, of course, that's even more expensive because these customers, existing customers, will somehow lose a bit of confidence with your solution, will lose a bit of confidence with your company as well. This is specifically happening sometimes for customer success people where they're going to be assigned to an account. And unfortunately, the account will not immediately complain about that, but you will see things changing over time. So, sorry, were you saying something, Josh?
Yeah, just to one point I want to double down on, Stefano, the first point that you're making, especially if you're running, these enterprise software deals. I know these deal cycles can be 9, 15 months. If you have a rep who is only, takes 3, 4, 5 months to just onboard them, those deal cycles will drastically take much longer.
Yeah,
So
great point. Great
I've
point.
heard from customers that, we're obviously talking to at Anthropos, as well as, within my career, that will prolongate these deal cycles by months and months and months. So it can be a big issue.
Yeah, I think there is a slide where we're going to be talking about that, but that's a good point because specifically in the enterprise space, you're going to confuse that sometimes with, it's just in the way things are, and you don't realize that it might just be, someone in your team that is actually adding more complexity or, actually going slower than what is needed.
Yep.
Um, Talking about slow things, let's start with hidden cost number one. So just to explain, what we're discussing here. These are kind of those costs that you're not going to be able to quantify immediately in these 3, 6, 9 months where you're gonna have someone that is not the perfect fit for a sales role, but they're gonna add up, meaning like at some point you're gonna suffer, you're gonna recognize this cost in your P&L or in your company because of course they're gonna show up. Like the first one to me is exactly the one that we were referencing just now. Things will slow down. What does that mean? In sales, you usually want people that are able to pick up things quickly. They're able to react to things. They can actually accommodate a lot of changes on the customer side, on the company side. They might, really be able to take something that has been promised to the customer from the roadmap and discuss that in a different way, or make sure that the customer doesn't get mad at them because of the delay. So they can do a lot of different things. But usually, when you have someone that is not the perfect fit, you will see things slowing down. And what I mean with that is that, they will try to basically, find excuses. They will probably, come up to their managers or, to their colleagues saying, well, we cannot really do this because, we don't have this product, we don't have this feature. There is nobody that can actually help me with these things. So a lot of the things that usually they would simply move quicker because you have someone that actually knows how to roll up their sleeves and just get them things done. They will simply slow down. So the things that you can do in an interview process to test this are, not many in my opinion, but the few things that come to mind are, first of all, making sure that you test their sense of urgency. What does that mean? It means like, okay, maybe, even simple things like, you're sending out an assessment, you're sending out an email, you're sending out any request. Are they quick enough in coming back to you? Are they like, going to the extra mile? So just an example, sometimes I will send out assessments or I will send out things that do have something that is too technical, that do have something that is not, very clear because maybe that's knowledge that you need to have. And the best people are simply going to try to complete that anyway. The people that are not going to be, the perfect fit will come back and say, well, I don't have that knowledge or I cannot complete this because of that, right? Um, the other thing that I really like to do is really setting expectations. So, of course, you can challenge them with the tough project, with the tough assessment, but you will see how they react to someone that is really setting the expectations about speed, about the number of activities, about, what do you expect from them. And somehow, in interviews, you can tell how they, will do with, that type of behavior, that type of expectation. The last thing that I truly like is asking them about deals that they worked on and who did what. Because, I think, everyone has had salespeople saying, well, I worked with Microsoft and I closed a $2 million deal or $5 million deal. And then when you start asking questions, you basically find out that they were part of a project, that there was a partnership, that they were not really the people driving that deal, right? And that makes all the difference because, if you're just, part of a big organization and you've been working with other 10 executives and closing that deal, probably you did something, but you were not the main reason the deal closed, right? And that's something that, of course, you want to recognize sooner than later because that will tell you, if that person is really a fit for your organization. I don't know if that, clicks with you, Josh.
Yeah, I have a comment on the first bullet point and what to do in an interview, and I think it just comes from my experience hiring. What I'll generally do to challenge the candidate is send over some sort of writing assignment after my initial interview for two reasons. One, I want to obviously know what their writing style looks like and um, that side of the house. But I also, more importantly, want to see how quickly they're going to be able to respond. I think that response time and being available is one of the most important skills to have. As a salesperson, if this person can't respond to me for a week, how are they going to treat their customers? How are they going to treat their prospects? So that's something
Totally.
that's very telling for me.
Totally. Thank you. Let's go to number two. This is a classic one, honestly. They always need more things. I think, a lot of people that have been hiring for salespeople, for sales reps in their career know about this. So usually the sign of someone that has this type of issue is someone that always needs more training. So maybe you've been onboarding them for a couple of months. They still don't feel ready to go and present in front of that customers. They still don't feel ready to put together a presentation. They still don't feel ready with their pitch. So there is always, more time, maybe more training that they need. And all of that is very expensive. So the hidden cost there is actually that you're putting in even more time before you can actually start, seeing these people doing real deals or, doing real conversation with customers. I think, the tools is kind of the same wheelhouse, meaning like um, if you cannot operate without a specific tool or if you cannot operate without a specific set of tools, I do think that sometimes there is an issue. Of course, even in my career, I do think that the right tools can truly accelerate people productivity, and so that's very true for sales. But there is also a tendency in a lot of people that are not a fit in sales to be like, okay, I couldn't find the really great data with this tool. Maybe we should buy this other tool that is going to be, 20K per year. Or, they might come back and say, well, I cannot really prepare the demo because I don't have all the data. I don't have, all the fake data inside the account that I need for something like that. So all these kind of things are usually a pretty telling sign that they might be, those type of reps that are finding excuses. They never feel ready for something like this. And the additional one that is honestly a classic one is if they need more support. Support usually in sales means a couple of things. Like, they might need a sales engineer. They don't feel confident doing the demo. They don't feel confident answering questions without someone else. They're gonna go and say like, well, I need a sales engineer, or, I would be more confident if I had also this other person in my initial conversation. While all these things are not per se a bad sign, like sometimes people just need more time, and that's okay. I think that when you see this pattern, when you see basically people that 2 months in, 3 months in, they need more of everything, that's usually a bad sign in my experience. They will never get to the point where you feel like, okay, these guys are ready and they can run with their fit, right? So this is another difficult one in the interview process, of course, because I think, you cannot really ask them like, hey, are you gonna need, all these tools, and usually they then come back and say like, hey, I also need this, I also need that. Sometimes they do, and that's gonna be an easy one to detect in the interview process. But I think that what you can do is really see how they have done their assessments. So if they've done a project, it's really the same thing that I was discussing before. And maybe don't give them all the data. Maybe don't give them all the things that you would give them, and see if they're gonna be able to go out and use ChatGPT or use a public data set to find that data, because that will tell you a lot about how scrappy they can be, how scrappy they want to be to go to the extra mile. And also, I think, something that is really important for this one is see how they present things. Meaning like, especially if you ask them to present something to you, or, to do role play with you, see how they say things, say how they do things, but also see how they react in a situation where, maybe they have a questions that they shouldn't be able to respond. And, the perfect sales rep is gonna probably still try to address that. Maybe it's gonna be saying something like, hey, this is not my wheelhouse, so I'll have someone, answering this for you. I'll come back to you with the answers. Or, even better, they will start asking questions and say like, hey, I'm not the right person, but I want to fully understand where you're coming from with this so that I can come back and give you the right answers, right? So all these things are usually, a better way to understand if these people are going to be those type of reps, the reps that always needs more things.
Hmm.
Let me go to the third one. Josh and I, funny enough, were discussing this just today. They can demo, and so the sales cycle gets longer. I think that, one of the things that we were saying is like, of course, like, if your people cannot do a demo, if they are particularly slow and they always need more time, one of the things that you will see immediately is like the sales cycle gets longer. But you will realize that in the matter of months instead of weeks, because usually you have, especially with enterprise deals, you have a lot of specific things like getting an NDA in place, or getting the right people at the table, or getting approval for other things. You will see that in the matter of months. And if you have someone that cannot do a demo or cannot really talk about a product, that will slow down even more. Why is that? Because if you don't have someone that knows the product, every single time that the customer will have something like a question or something like a concern or an objection, they will need to consult with someone else, right? I've seen this myself with people that couldn't really run a demo, couldn't really speak about a product. And so every single time the customer or the prospect, not even the customer, at an objection, they didn't know how to handle that. So either we were losing the deal, or it was actually costing us another meeting to go back to that customer. And of course, another meeting after another meeting, all of a sudden you're adding months to the sales cycle, right? So I think this is pretty simple. I think you want to have people in the interview process that can demo at least their existing product. They should be able to do that, or they should be knowledgeable about that product. And you also want to have people that whenever they feel in a conversation, they feel they are in a conversation where they don't know enough, they start asking questions, or they basically show you that they want to learn more. Because I think, just you tell me, but I've been working with a lot of people in my career in sales that are not technical, that they were not experts in our industry, but at the same time, they really wanted to learn. They really wanted to ask questions about that. And so that was the way they were learning more things.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always harped to my sales teams is that you have to be essentially a consultant to your prospects and customers. And you can't be a consultant if you have to go refer to three other different people at your company to get all the answers, right? So I've sat on, demo calls for other products, and I'm asking very simple questions, and these folks can't even answer, a very simple, not even technical question. So I've always been of the mindset that, every person at the company, not even just salespeople, should be able to give at least, a 3 to 5 minute demo of the product. They should have a baseline understanding of how everything works, especially the sales team, no
Yeah.
matter what your role is, even if you're an SDR, even if you're an account
Uh,
manager, you know.
And the reality is that, even on our side, whenever something like that happens, you simply slow down. Like, maybe you were excited about seeing the product. You found someone that doesn't really know the product. All of a sudden, you have questions, you have curiosities. You also have like, technical details that you might want to know, and your interest goes down, right? So that's really a big one, in my opinion, for selecting salespeople. Um, Last couple, number four, and then we have number five. So they need a lot of hand holding. I think, this is another common one, but this is probably slightly different. I'm talking from my perspective. Usually salespeople that are not going to work out are the ones where you need to constantly repeat the same things, right? You need to constantly tell them, hey, do your activities, follow up with that person, make sure you do this next time. So those kind of things adds up. Of course, usually these things are pretty good because you can see them in the first month, even that they work with you. But you're again, like a lot of these things, you're going to see a pattern where you find yourself as a manager, as a director, constantly repeating the same things. And I think, that's really where you should be like, okay, is this person ever going to be able to do these things? Is this person ever going to be able to, be autonomous to some extent? So that's a big one. That's expensive because to some extent you're spending someone else's time, your time, or someone else in your team to follow these people to make sure that they are working, right? And that's really what you don't want in sales. What are the things that you can do in the interview process? So you can, of course, make your product marketing team part of the interview process. You can test a lot of other things that, tell you basically if they can collaborate with others. And you can do a bunch of things that are more like, okay, let's see if they can do these things, right? That's really something that, will tell you like, hey, can they move by themselves? Can you have, feedback from someone else? Okay. Last one. Customers don't trust them. Just what do you think about this one? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. Again, I think it goes back to my previous point is that you need to build the trust and you need to have the trust of these customers through that
True.
consultative approach, right? So if you're not able to, answer some of those questions, um, these people will move on to someone else who is more of a consultant. So I think this is maybe even the most important uh, point that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I also think like, sometimes it happens also with your internal teams, meaning like, they will interact with, the new salesperson and they will not be impressed, or they will think like, okay, this person doesn't really know about a product. We've been explaining these things multiple times and still they came back with the same question. So there are, usually signals that you can take internally. And I think, you could probably safely assume that it's going to be the same with customers. But of course, it's more difficult to hear from customers. So I think that my favorite one is try to talk to their previous customers. That's usually like, the best thing you can do. It's hard to find that, but if you can, ask that person, hey, can you introduce me to three, four, five customers that you work with in the past? Call them, see how they felt buying from that person, see, the kind of words that they use to describe them. That is going to make all the difference because, a customer that is going to take that call definitely had a good experience. A customer that is going to take that call and will not have a lot to say, I mean, you can tell that pretty quickly. Again, it's difficult to get there. Not many people will do it, but if you want, just ask for that. Um, what I would do is also reading how they talk to other people, meaning like, other people in the team. Are they, friendly enough? Can they build a relationship? Can they actually, be on time with things? Of course, you can do this in multiple ways. You can actually use something like our solution, you can actually introduce them to other people in your team and simply see how they do things. You can actually even build an assessment and make sure that as part of that assessment, they need to reach out to someone in your team, right? I think, that's even better because, they will need to basically face someone that they don't know and they will need to get something and see how they do it, right? The other thing is, are they good readers and listeners? Because usually people that are not really good at building relationship with customers are also the ones that are not paying too much attention. So maybe the customer has been explaining exactly what they need and they were not listening or they were focusing on something else. That's usually a pretty good sign that they're not going to be able to build trust with customers.
Hmm.
We do
We
have
have
a
a,
question.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, no. I was actually reading a question from one of our attendees. How do you understand someone's self-motivation during interviews? It's always difficult for me because they often seem very motivated, but once you see them at work, it changes completely. That's a tough one. I think self-motivation is usually something that you need to talk to references, in my opinion. You need to see multiple things throughout the process. So how quick they come back to you, how quick they complete something that you assign to them, um, how many questions they ask you. Like, someone that is going to be self-motivated is going to go to the extra mile, is going to research about your company, is going to research about your product. It might even challenge you. I think like, if I think about, the best candidates that I've hired, they send me long emails or they brought me into these calls and they were like, hey, why are you guys doing this? Are you not concerned about this other thing? And so to some extent they were trying to test me, they were trying to do a lot of things, and that is connected to self-motivation because it tells me that they really want to have this job, they really want to do some real work to understand if they are a fit, and they're gonna go and ask about a lot of things, right? I
Hmm.
think um, it's also a difficult one if you don't meet them in person because you cannot really tell about specific aspects of their personality. But if you try to connect, multiple things throughout a process, usually you can tell if they are self-motivated or not. I don't
Hmm.
know, Josh, if you have anything specific about this.
Yeah, I mean, being motivated is something that is vital, in this type of sales role. And so, like, kind of going back to my one of my points earlier was that I'll generally send out some sort of assessment or written assessment to my candidates. And yes, you can say the objection like, oh, if they don't respond fast, um, they're probably not the most motivated. But you can also say like, even if this person he's working two jobs, has five kids, whenever the case may be, they can still reach out and say, hey, I'm going to get this done on this day, and just
Totally.
build that timeline for me. Because again, it's how they're treating me and how they're interacting with me is how they're going to interact with their customers and prospects. So I always look for that as well.
Totally. Thank you. Let's go next. So now we're going to show you how a lot of these things, not all of them, will be honest with you, are things that you can actually probably do better, or all right, we're gonna save you some time and some money ideally using our solution, because Anthropos allows you to bring people like sales reps, customer success reps, candidates that are basically applying for a customer facing roles into real scenarios where you can test them. You can see how they read things, you can see how they interact with other people, you can see how they think, right? Which is something important to in this context. So, of course, we do have a lot of simulations that come us out already from our library, more than 250 today, but you can also build your own. And I don't know if we're going to have time to show you the entire solution that we have, but Josh is going to do his best to really show you how we can test a lot of these things in a simulation. Over to you, Josh.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen, guys. I need to request it. I think you're the host,
There you
Stefano.
go.
Okay, thanks. So let me share. Alrighty. So now onto the fun stuff. So what I'm sharing here is actually our Anthropos platform. So what Stefano was alluding to there on the last slide, these are actually simulations that we are sending out to our candidates. So when we're hiring for a BDR, SDR, when we're hiring for customer support, when we're hiring for account executives like me, product managers, these are actual simulations that we're sending out to assess our candidates and grade them on who we think is the best fit for the role. So let's focus in on this account executive simulation. As you can see here at the bottom, each of these simulations, we are looking at specific skills. So we have a skills taxonomy or a skills database of 60,000 skills that you can choose from. If for some reason we don't have a specific skill that you're looking at, you can always create that and create a description. We'll be able to verify or assess them on those skills. So in this specific simulation, we're looking at how well the candidate actively listened, client relationship built, as well as consultatively sold. The way that the skills are actually assessed is a two-prong approach. The first is binary. Did they do any sort of active listening? Did they do any sort of relationship building? Did they use any sort of selling techniques? If they did, it's actually going to give them a skill score of 1 to 5 on how well they're able to use or achieve that skill. So it's going to be very easy for hiring managers or talent acquisition folks to actually benchmark these candidates against each other. So let me jump into Anthropos Studio. Stefano mentioned that we're able to actually create custom simulations to your prospects, to your objections that you see, to your products, to your pricing, to your sales methodologies, to your sales playbook. Everything is completely customizable. So let me show you how that's done. So I'm jumping into Anthropos Studio here. It's taking a second to load. So let me zoom in. This is where we're actually going to be creating a custom simulation. So I can click create simulation. And here, this is where we're actually going to be describing a specific situation or scenario that we want. So, you can say, I want to create a simulation where an SDR has to do a cold call with a prospect who's using a competitor. And, you want to see how that candidate is actually speaking to that prospect, how they're objection handling, what types of questions they're asking, how they're asking questions. I want to be clear, this console that we're offering is not a AI interviewer. We're actually putting the candidates in a real world scenario. So what I can do is I can go on LinkedIn. We'll just use like Salesforce as an example, and I can pull a job description directly from here. We'll just use this enterprise AE, and I can just copy and paste this here. Or again, I would be able to describe one as well. But I'll paste this in. What the AI is doing is actually taking this job description and it's going to create a scenario for us. So it's creating a scenario where the player is just the candidate, is an enterprise AE at Salesforce working to engage with manufacturing clients. Great. This is all customizable. I can add or change things here. I can also add any documents. Like I mentioned, if I want to add a product overview or a sales playbook, maybe a specific sales methodology that your company is using, you can add all of those things. We're also going to be recommending potential scenarios that our customers are using. So when our customers are hiring for AEs or enterprise AEs, these are some of the things that they're creating. So present Salesforce demo to CIO, map manufacturing client stakeholders, customize CRM proposal for client, navigate enterprise procurement process. We're going to just do a custom one just so we can show you. So I'm going to click generate. What the AI is doing now is actually taking the job description as well as any of the inputs via PDF or anything that I've written. And it's going to create a very realistic scenario to what an enterprise AE at Salesforce would see on a daily basis. So we've now transformed the Salesforce enterprise sales job description into a high stakes role play simulation. Great. So let's quickly, read through this and we can see that this is going to be very realistic. So you're now playing an enterprise AE at Salesforce tasked with engaging a senior executive at a major manufacturing company. The executive is exploring digital transformation, but is skeptical about generic value propositions and contending with budget constraints and change-resistant internal teams. So you have 45 minutes to establish credibility, uncover the client's precise needs, and position Salesforce customer 360 platform as a tailored solution, all while competing against other vendors known to the client. So we can add or change things. So I can say, make the prospect defensive and difficult to work with. If I want to make this more complex, or I can go in and chat with our AI and say, I want to create 2 tasks for this candidate. One to assess soft skills and one for technical or hard skills. We'll do CRM knowledge or something like that. So I understand in this specific role, this is the enterprise role. I'm assuming that Salesforce is looking to hire folks that are both good on the soft skill side. They're obviously salespeople, but also have a good understanding of CRM tools out there in the market and other knowledge that they might have. So I'm actually communicating with our AI here, who's going to be able to add these tasks for me and add and change things within the simulation. So great. Our AI has now added 2 tasks, like I asked, one for soft skills, so trust and objection handling, and one for CRM knowledge, expanding the scenario to prompt the candidate for both behavioral and technical performance in a unified high stakes conversation. Great. Couple different things that we can look at here. The modality is actually just what you're using the simulation for. I know today we're focused on the hiring side of Anthropos, but we also have Anthropos for workforce development, onboarding, training, upskilling. So you can use simulations for training and assessment purposes as well. We're just going to use our micro template. This is our shorter template that actually will be about a 30 to 45-minute simulation. We also have scenario, which is a longer simulation with a written piece. So if you want, for example, in this scenario, you want the candidate to send a follow-up email to this prospect after the call, you can see how that person's writing, and we're actually going to be grading the candidate on what they're writing as well. I'll put this in our sales category. These are the actors, the AI actors that are going to be within the simulation. So obviously the players who we're playing, we're the enterprise AE, and then we're actually speaking to a VP of digital transformation at a random manufacturing company. This is all, again, customizable. You can change, you can add characters. If I want to add an SDR that I need to work with, or a sales engineer that I need to work with, or maybe you want to change to a different ICP for the prospect, we can do all of those things here. I think this is where the most important part is. Again, I mentioned we have that skill database of 60,000 skills. The AI is actually going to be choosing 3 skills that we want to verify or assess this candidate on. These are the skills that the simulation has provided to us. But again, we can change these. They did active listening, objection handling, and relationship building. Let's say I want another technical skill, so I can actually see how well they know Salesforce or other CRM tools. I can assess them for that as well. So we have Salesforce CRM, Salesforce Cloud, etc. So we can look at different things and choose what we want to assess this candidate on. And again, we're using these simulations to benchmark the candidates against each other. If someone scores a 4 out of 5 and another person scores a 2 out of 5, clearly you're going to know who you want to spend the most time with. I'm going to click generate. What we're doing now, and the AI is actually taking all of the inputs that I've given it. That includes anything that I've written, the job description that I provided, any of the PDFs that I've uploaded, and it's actually going to create a scenario for us and spit this out within 5 to 15 minutes. It's going to send me an email once it's ready. So you're probably saying now, Josh, this is great. I'm glad that you can, make these simulations very customizable, but, I want to see what the simulation actually looks like. So I'm going to jump into the account executive simulation that I was showing you before. So it went to the wrong demo account. Let me go back. Okay. So I'm going to jump into this account executive at Anthropos simulation. Let me pause this for a second and explain a few things. So this is the first screen from a candidate experience standpoint that your candidates will see. Nothing I've shown you thus far, a candidate will see. There's going to be 2 videos right off the bat. This video on the left is going to be explaining what the simulation is, what the role the candidate will have to play, the tasks that they need to complete, who they're communicating with. It's also going to be written out here as well. So if you want to read through it. And then the video on the right is actually just explaining what an AI simulation is in general. We understand that this is a pretty innovative technology. Not everyone has a good understanding that you have to communicate with AI actors. They have a specific time limit to complete this in. This is not, we want to make this as realistic as possible and put pressure on these candidates. So we're just explaining what those are. And then obviously the skills that we're going to be verifying within the simulation. So I'm going to click continue, I actually started this simulation prior, just to show you what it looks like. So I actually have a couple different things. Let me explain a couple different things that I want to explain before I actually start chatting with some of these AI actors. There's actually two AI actors within the simulation. One is my sales director, Ethan, and then this is the prospect, Jessica, who I'm actually going to be speaking with as the prospect. So just to give you a little bit of background, I know we didn't watch the video or read through any of the text on the first page, but essentially I'm speaking with Jessica, who's the prospect at a small firm. She's interested in looking at Anthropos. She has over 300 applicants, high volume recruiting, a high turnover rate. So obviously people are turning over very quickly. That leads to a very high cost of a bad hire. So she's looking for a solution that might help there. And that's obviously perfect use cases for Anthropos. The bad thing is that she's actually had a poor previous experience purchasing software in the past. So she's more on the HR side. She had a poor experience purchasing an ATS, an applicant tracking system. So she's a little bit defensive and a little bit wary to work with another software company. So we also have the tasks that we need to complete. The first task I already completed, which was actually reviewing the scenario. I did that before we jumped on, just so we can skip through that. And then now I'm on task 2. So now I need to build rapport and diagnose, obviously Jessica's pain points. So I need to chat with Jessica to establish a friendly tone, ask open-ended questions, about her challenges, and then actively listen to pinpoint and restate her key pain points. And then once I complete that, I'm going to actually have to position Anthropos' AI solution as credible, and then obviously book a follow-up meeting. So this is Ethan again. He's my sales director at Anthropos. He's giving me a little bit more information on Jessica, so I can say, thanks, Ethan. Do you have any other insights before I jump on the call? Couple things to note. I'm just using our text feature. What a lot of our customers are doing for sales is actually completely eliminating the text, so they can't text. They can only use audio. Reason being, their salespeople, they're going to be on a lot of audio conversations. We want to see how these people are talking, their tonality, their cadence, the way that they're asking questions, how they're asking questions. These are all very, very important things that we can use when we're evaluating candidates. So Ethan got back to me and he's asking me about specific strategies for uncovering Jessica's pain points. Have I thought about how I'll validate her concerns? I can continue this conversation with Ethan, but just for demo purposes, I'm going to go to Jessica and talk to her. So I'll say, "Hey Jessica, this is Josh with Anthropos. I understand you've been dealing with some trouble on the screening and assessment side of the house. I'm curious what your current process looks like." So I'm using the audio function here. The AI is actually going to take what I'm saying and it's going to send this out to Jessica. Jessica is actually going to respond, and this is a completely dynamic conversation, right? So this is nothing pre-canned. There is actually going to be responses based on what I'm saying. And again, up here in the right, we do have a timer here. Again, I mentioned that this is on a sales call, you don't have unlimited time. We want to put pressure on these candidates and make sure that they're doing things on time. So Jessica will respond back to me.
Hi, Josh. Our screening process, it's a mess, to be honest. I'm drowning in resumes and wasting so much time.
So clearly she's giving me some pain points that, as a salesperson, I want to dig a little bit more and understand, what she means by these things and, what they're currently doing. So I can ask, do you use any specific tools to pre-screen for the resumes? So again, let's pretend that I finished this task and I've completed it. I'm just going to mark it as done and move on to the next task. Now I'm going to have to again present Anthropos AI Simulation to Jessica, link their features to our pain points. Excuse me, link our features to her pain point.
Tried an ATS a couple.
And then obviously be able to book the meeting. I'm going to click end just to show you what the results look like because I know we're short on time. What the AI is actually doing now is taking everything that I've given it in terms of text, in terms of audio messages, and it's actually going to be assessing me based on these 3 skills. Again, we were looking at active listening, client relationship building, and consultative selling techniques. So it's going to give the candidate, again, this is completely from the candidate experience standpoint, this is what the candidate will see, a breakdown of how they performed within the simulation, and it's going to tell them, what they did well and some of the things that they can improve on. So we're going to give an overall score here. Like I said, a brief paragraph on some of the things that they did well and they can improve on. And then we also have a more in detail breakdown based on each skill. So, Josh demonstrated strong proficiency in using open-ended questions to encourage detailed responses, which supports active listening, but he did not restate or paraphrase the client's big concerns, missing opportunities to confirm understanding. So we can go through each one of these and look through the details. This is a piece that can be taken off. I know we have one customer that doesn't want to provide any feedback. I think from a candidate experience standpoint, I loved getting feedback. So this is something that I always looked forward to when I didn't get the job and I didn't get the final interview, etc. So I love this. I love getting feedback. Like I said, it's great from a candidate experience standpoint. Now, let me show you guys what it looks like from the management console. So this is, again, nothing, what I'm showing you now is not what a candidate will see. This is strictly for the TA managers, talent acquisition managers, as well as, the hiring managers. So I'm going to jump back into this simulation. These are all simulations that folks have been taking, within the Anthropos platform. I'm going to go back into this one. It's going to show me all of the candidates that actually have taken the simulation and obviously who I should be spending the time with. Clearly, I'm not going to be spending much time with Mario, Elisa, or Stefano, but Christian, Josh, and John all scored great. So I want to spend some more time with them. So let's look into the insights. We'll go to Christian here. And I'm actually going to be looking at his results. The first thing we're going to do is obviously the score at the top. He scored really well, 96 out of 100. We're going to give you a job fit analysis. So based on the job description that was provided to create the simulation, an overview of how well this person aligned, what are their core capabilities, what is their work style and work fit, and then we're obviously going to give you an overall assessment.
And Josh, maybe that's a good point now to answer one question we have, that is, how do you evaluate what people do? How do you know if they don't use GPT? So maybe you want to cover that quickly, just because we're looking
Yes.
at results.
Thanks for bringing that up. I don't
Sure.
it's tough for me to see the chat. Yes, so we do have a full cheat detection here. So what this means, we're going to be able to see if they're copying and pasting, if they're using additional devices. Most importantly, if they're using LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, any of those tools, we're actually going to be able to see that. As well as if they're using any of the AI actors to manipulate them to get answers, we're going to see that, especially if they're doing this simulation more than once. So clearly, if you've done the simulation once, you're going to have a good understanding of what to do. We're also going to give you feedback. We actually do have customers, and this brings me to another point. We actually do have customers who will purposely give their candidates 2 chances, especially for sales roles. We want to see how coachable these people are. So let's say I have a candidate who takes the simulation the first time, scores a 60 out of 100, and we want them to take it again, and they scored 80 or 90 out of 100. Clearly, that person is coachable. Clearly, they're good at taking advice, and they're able to improve. So, but yeah, from a cheating detection standpoint, we have that all covered here. And we see that very often these days, where people are not necessarily good at the job, but they're good at tailoring their resumes to the job descriptions using ChatGPT. So we look at these AI simulations as a way to actually assess if what they're saying on the resume is real. I can't tell you how many times I've seen folks will say they, know certain sales methodologies like Medic or Challenger or Bant, and they've hit 200% quota. These are all great things, but show me that you can actually do those things. I want to, see you in action and see you perform in the actual job before I have to hire you. So hopefully that answers the question. Feel free to chat again if it didn't. We can actually look back at that candidate's full session recording or explore their full conversation here. I can go back and actually listen to what this person was saying to the candidates. Again, this is going to be very important to listen back to them. So we can hear Christian talking there. And then we're going to break down their strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, Christian did a very good job on this simulation. He doesn't have too many weaknesses, but we're also going to be giving you the full breakdown here again. And then we're also going to show you some level of commitment and motivation. This is something that I spoke about when we were showcasing the slides, is that, if I give someone the simulation and I give them a week to do it, let's say they finish it that day or the next day, they're probably pretty committed, similarly, or motivated. Similarly, if that person spends the majority of the time within the simulation, let's say I give them 30 minutes to complete it, And once they jump into the simulation, give them 30 minutes to complete it. They spend 1 or 2 minutes. They're probably not, the most committed to me and my company. So, like I said, we want the most motivated candidates, and we're going to try to show you who's the most motivated. And then again, we're going to break down their skills and give them a skill score. This is very easy to benchmark. We can go back to my when I took the simulation. You saw Christian there at a 4 out of 5, and then you can go to mine. I only scored a 2 out of 5 on the active listening skill. So clearly, you might want to spend some more time with Christian if you're a hiring manager than myself. Quickly, let me just show you how easy it is to assign these simulations. We have 2 different use cases that folks are actually using the simulations. The first is very top of funnel. So they're actually going to generate a public link, put the simulation on their job description or on their open job rec, and have these candidates take the simulation before speaking with anyone. They want to cut. Oftentimes these are used for like entry-level jobs like SDRs, for example, where they get hundreds of applicants and there are a lot of unqualified applicants. So for example, we'll give them a week to actually do this. I want to turn on voice only mode because I want to hear them talk. I don't care about how they're texting. And then this is going to expire in a week. And then I'll generate this link and then post it on my job description. I could also add people into Anthropos and then assign them simulations. So it's going to work very, very similarly. I'll choose the simulation and choose the due date for the. So the second use case would actually be using these simulations later in the funnel. So let's say you get down to 3 or 5 candidates that you think are all on the same level playing field, and you want an objective third-party view. So completely removing all subjectivity, and you want to see how they perform based on specific skills. So again, you would choose specific skills that you want and then see how well they perform. That's pretty much it. Stefano, anything else that you want me to cover here?
No, I think we're good. I think I think we're past time by 5 minutes. So we're gonna wrap up. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you want to see a full demo, you can also request a free trial for our Anthropos hiring solution. You can also get completely free solution up to 50 candidates in one job position. So if you want to test this with one position that you have inside your organization, that's an easy way to do so. But for anything else, feel free to reach out, and thank you again for staying with us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, Josh. Thank you.